Hi, everybody. It is Cindy Ingram from Art Class Curator, and I am excited to go live with you today because it has been a while since I have. I have been wanting to do this at night, and night times are hard. So I actually have managed to make it happen today, and I'm super excited. And what we're going to talk about today is how to choose the right learning objectives for your art history lessons. And one of my main causes with teaching art history is making it more fun and more engaging for students, because we've all been in those art history classes that are super boring, where the teacher just sat there and sort of told us the information and we sort of soaked it in and we wrote it down and we maybe dozed off a little bit in the dark, and it wasn't a very engaging experience. So we're going to talk about kind of ways to start that process and to distill the information down to some really key points so that making our learning objectives can be easy, and making our learning activities easy to figure out. So I see I have a couple viewers. Hello. Make sure you leave a comment or something so I can see that you're here. And so let's get started. Now, I came up with this idea to talk on here last week when I was at University of North Texas. I was doing a guest lecture for a teacher in-service class of college students, and I kind of went off on a tangent and started talking about, how to take an art history movement and break it down to like 3 to 5 key points. And that's where you should sort of start with. And I think it's a really good lesson to learn and a really good thing to try to figure out, because I have a couple art movements where I get really stressed out when I try to teach. Ancient Egypt is one of them, and Italian Renaissance is the other one. They're so big, right? Like ancient Egypt is 3,000 years of a time span. And how are we supposed to cover 3,000 years of time in, a couple lessons or one lesson? Like, how do we do that and still do the content justice? And so I always get panic attacks when I have to teach ancient Egypt. And then people are all, students are too, they have their expectations built up about ancient Egypt. So that's a whole other thing. And Italian Renaissance is the same way. I mean, like Michelangelo and Da Vinci and Donatello. I mean, if you do the artists, then you just have so much to cover. So I have learned through my experience teaching art history and that it's really best to take any particular art movement and break it down to 3 to 5 very key basic points. And I call them the basic characteristics or the basic conventions of that art movement. And that is where all of your lessons should come from, because if you start getting bogged down on all the tiny details with everything, then you're going to lose focus. The students aren't going to learn as much, and it's not going to be as relevant, and they're not going to remember it. So I think that's a really important thing to do. Now, to give you an example of this is, so say I'm teaching, I shouldn't do it, ancient Egypt, because then I'll start getting stressed out about coming up with the conventions. So say we're doing French Impressionism, right? Hi, Megan. Like the main key thing you need to remember with French Impressionism is that they are going outside and trying to capture the atmosphere and the light in a place. Like, that is the number one thing to remember. Yes, you can remember that Monet was inspired by Japanese art. You can do all this other stuff, but really, like, if you're going to remember one thing, you're going to remember that they went outside and they tried to capture the atmosphere, right? So there's all these other random details that you could remember. Oh, good, Kim. Yeah, if you aren't signed up for the text reminders, you can get text reminders for my Facebook Lives. And it's the first time I've actually used it, even though I set it up like a month ago or 2 months ago. And I forgot how to sign up. I should have looked that up before I do it. I think you text Art Cura to... No, I don't remember. I'm sorry. That's good information to have. So I'll look it up and post it on here as a comment later if you want to get notified. So yeah, you want to figure out like what are those 3 to 5 points, and then you can design your learning activities around those things. So if you're trying to create a lesson and you're studying all of our history, that movement, and you're throwing in this, that, all the different things from all the different places, you end up with this big, massive presentation with all these images, but nothing is cohesive and nothing sticks together, and nothing teaches that very key point that you want to cover. Like, for example, the most recent lesson I did, and I posted a blog today about that, was early photography, and I did one last week about that as well. But how revolutionary that photography was in general, and how different it is from today. Like, thinking about it in terms of those big ideas, and then you can connect that back and forth to today. So I also realized that we were doing a poetry writing exercise in that same class that I talked about last week. And when you write a poem about a painting, often the student's poem like fits the key essence, or those really key points, beautifully. Like, if you write a poem about Fragonard's Swing, like, that poem will sound like you are describing Rococo. And if you write one about neoclassical, about the Oath of the Horatii, like, that poem will talk about honor and patriotism, and those are the key ideas of neoclassical art. So when you're trying to get to those key ideas and trying to get the students to understand those key ideas, you can really dive into some really awesome learning activities like creative writing and poetry, kinesthetic movement, all these things that really try to get to the core of what that art movement is all about, and not getting yourself bogged down in all the details. And I realized that I think in my head, I have like one word for most art movements, like that there's just one word that describes it. And I think if you can distill it down to even one word, that's going to help you, focus on your lessons and be more clear and deliberate about where you're going to take the students when they're learning that. So, like, for example, like I said, neoclassical, the word I would choose for neoclassical would be honor. And the word I would choose for Rococo would be sweetness. And the word I would choose for, I'm thinking about writing these all down. I haven't done it yet because I just came up with the idea. The word I would choose for like Italian Baroque would be dramatic. And if you can think about it in terms of that, then you're able to strip away all the extra stuff and strip away all the pressure of you've got to teach every little tiny thing. And then you're getting down to really the meat of it, and you're able to be more creative and more innovative in your lessons. So that's my little public service announcement for how to choose your learning objectives. And I hope I have had it on my list for quite a long time to like make a document that has all the 3 to 5 points for every single art movement. I haven't created it yet, but it's something I really am interested in doing. And if you have downloaded any of my lessons from the resource library or in my online store, you'll see all of them have this sort of few points that all the activities are trying to get at. And I think that's some people will see it and say, oh, that's kind of simple. You're not covering enough. But I think it's more important to go deeper than it is to go wider in terms of the amount of information you cover, because we don't need to know all the details in our future, and we're going to forget them all. So there you go. So if you have any questions about this, I'm happy to answer them, or about anything. Other than that, thank you for watching. I know I was just going to pop on for a very quick live to talk about what was going on in my head. And I hope to do this more often because I enjoy it, and I'm going to be more deliberate about coming on here every week and talking with you guys. So thank you very much. If you're not on my email list, you can sign up at artclasscurator.com/artbreak. And in your welcome email, you will get a link to sign up for the text reminders for the Facebook Lives. So you can sign up that way as well. And that's it. Thank you so much. Have a lovely night. And I will talk to you guys later. You're welcome. And I'll be back to answer any questions. So if you have any, type them in the chat and I will check it later.